Okay, hopefully we're live. And welcome everyone to another live stream lesson. Today we will be doing some opening prep using only free tools from lichess and in an optional way from openingtree.com. So we're going to start that in just a second. Oops, there we go. Looks like we are live. Okay, so first of all, I want to show how I'm setting up my opening prep situation here on lichess. So let's switch into that scene. Alrighty, so this is my study for the Petrov defense. And I chose Petrov defense for a couple reasons. Number one, if you are playing e4 with white, you have to know how to play against the Petrov defense. So it's practical from that standpoint that if you want to learn how to respond very well in at least one way to the Petrov defense, this will be a good live stream for you. Another reason I chose the Petrov defense is that if you are trying to prepare to break into playing e5 with black, then the Petrov defense is a pretty good option because it's a relatively narrow repertoire for black. If you were playing like the Spanish or something, it would be really a lot more. Hey, we already have some followy people. Thank you. Brackler Racker from Twitch. Thank you for the follow. So anyway, so if you're playing black, then Petrov defense is also really valuable to know if you want to ever, have a chance to play e5 if that's not your main thing already. So let's get started. I'm going to look at both sides here. So I have one chapter called black, one called white. This will be the white one. And the Petrov defense starts like this. And this is something that's really familiar probably to beginning players, because a lot of the time when people are first learning how to play, they just copy each other, and so you've probably seen this before. But it's actually really a strong opening, because if you play knight takes e5, the best move is not to copy. If you've seen my video about refuting the copycat opening, you'll know that the best move here is d6. There's also this fashionable alternative in knight z6, and I've already written how I think we should respond to knight c6 in another video, so I probably won't be going over that again. Anand would play bishop c4. Welcome, Anand. You mean in this position? And just give the e-pawn? Well, let me maybe frame a little bit more about how I'm going to do this before we get into the moves themselves. So this is a major tabia of the Petrov defense. So if we're going to be playing white, we should at least take a look at this. And if we're playing black, this is something we need to know for sure. So I have a white chapter and a black chapter in this study. And I'm going to be using the features including the opening reference. It doesn't look very good right now because I set up my scene here for you to see moves, but maybe I could actually make it look a little bit better. Let me see real quick. It'll just end up being smaller perhaps. Maybe I'll include one top game. And maybe I'll move this somewhere. Well, it does fit pretty well right there. It says Russian game right there, so maybe I'll just leave my text out for today. Okay, so here is our opening explorer. This is something that we're going to use because I'm coming from the stance that a lot of people who are going to be preparing this opening for the first time probably don't have access to database software like ChessBase or any paid subscriptions to places where you can find games, or they're not tech savvy and they don't want to put in the effort to learn how to build their own database, which is another topic that I'm going to get into down the road. So assuming you don't want to do all those things and you want to use the easy features on lichess, this is what we're going to be working with, this opening explorer. The other feature that I intend to use today is actually not from lichess, it's from opening tree. But lichess endorses the idea of using opening tree. So this is openingtree.com. And what I'm doing is actually I'm going to openingtree.com. I'm logging in and I'm preparing as if I were preparing for myself. So here I've put in my username, MasterMaters, where I'm playing white. And I'm seeing how I've done in the past, because I think that is a good place to look for interesting ideas for black. You know, I have a very, very good score against the Petrov defense, so looking at any of the games that I lost is probably going to be helpful for picking out the critical tests for black. Granted, I remember the games that I lost in this line, and they're mostly because of external factors, but, you know, there's no reason not to take a look that way. So anyway, we've got our tools here, and first let's do a little bit of an exploration. Yeah, Anand, feel free to be well prepared against me at the end of this video. Okay, so let's switch back to lichess for the moment. Okay, so let's say that we are preparing to play white against the Petrov. I think this is pretty reasonable because we will see a bunch of options for white and see what that means for preparing for black. And a good way to start figuring out what white's options are is just to look at the opening reference here, which is showing for you guys, right? Yeah. So you just take a look at this opening reference, and you go down the line, and the way you should look at these moves is like, okay, these are not just your options. Really good moves, even the best move, might never have been played. But at least in the first few moves, it's good to take note of what is popular, because oftentimes what's popular is what's strong. Sometimes what's popular is just what's obvious too. So there's a downside to that. But anyway, these are things that, you know, can guide how you take your first look at the position. Another feature we're going to be using is the chess engine that comes with lichess. So we'll be checking a few things with the engine, but not initially. We're not just like turning on the engine, seeing what it says, and playing those moves out. So first let's explore these options. So we have knight f3 played. This is the top move by far, with like almost 17,000 games on lichess. There's knight c4. There's knight takes f7. And there's knight d3. Now, based just on the logic that whatever is popular is what's good, you might get the idea that knight f3 is the best move, and we should actually ignore these other options. But there are two reasons that that's not the case. The first reason is that we are preparing for black as well in the other chapter of this study, and therefore we need to be prepared for these same moves, right? We need to check them out and see what white is attempting to do and try to find refutations. But the other reason that we can't ignore them is because just because something is popular historically doesn't mean that it's what's critical right now. So knight f3 has been played for like hundreds of years, probably like as long as people have played chess. It's been a very common move. But recently people have been trying things like knight d3. Another thing you should pay attention to is the score. For instance, here, knight takes f7 has a quite large winning rate for black. And that could be an indicator either that the kinds of positions that we get are ones where white can easily make a mistake, or that black actually has some kind of refutation for the knight takes f7 move. So good to pay attention to those kinds of things when you're preparing. Anand is asking, how do some of the moves after knight f3 have 100% win rate for white? Probably they've only been played once. Yeah, knight c6, g6, queen e7, bishop e7. These are all just master games. Yeah, this is Master's Database right here. So this is the lichess one where it's only people like Carlsen and Caruana playing. If we look at the lichess database, we can see that many more games have been played. So if you're preparing for online play, it's actually good to also see like what the scrubs are doing, which is basically what this database says. Moves that lose every time in master practice, but have an insignificant number of samples, like knight c6. They have a significant number of samples here from the lichess database, but the quality of play is lower overall. So you see a sort of like washed out win rate distribution. Like a lot of these moves, they kind of have to be refuted, in my opinion. Like let's find a ridiculous move, like knight g4. All right, knight g4 has a 21% win rate for black, which is absurd because knight g4 is like a really silly move. It doesn't make any sense. Even if white just plays like h3, they should be doing pretty well. So, you know, you have to take the database that comes from user games with a grain of salt. The Masters database is always going to have fewer games, but they're going to be arguably higher quality. But you can get more games with the database from all people. I think it's really valuable to look at the database that is for you. Like for me, I've had this position 9 times, it looks like, and they've played knight takes e4 every time. And I've like one game that I've lost here, it looks like. It says like there's 7 games, 14% was a loss. So yeah, I have one game somewhere in here where I lost. But so it's good to know what these options are, and just to cheat a little bit, I already know what the options are. And since I'm preparing this chapter for white, I've already made a decision about which one I want to look at. I want to look at knight f3, and that's it. In the future, it's good to prepare some sidelines. Like maybe here in the future, I will prepare knight d3. And this would actually be something that's really important to look at with black. And here it's like knight takes e4 is the critical move. Let me go back to the Masters database. And queen e2 is the top move, but people have also played knight c3. Queen e2 is the thing that happened with Carlsen and Caruana, so this is probably a good place to start from. And that's actually another important point, that it's good to try to pick some players that you know are super good in these lines and then follow them. So if we were playing black, we'd want to follow what Caruana is doing, because Caruana is probably the top player right now who chooses the Petrov defense with any kind of regularity. Not that we should blindly follow them, but you know, they have people, they have like teams of people who do analysis for them for their openings for things like the World Championship. And whenever they play a game in those lines, they kind of reveal some of what that prep was. So it's like the cheap way of getting Caruana's team to work for you. Just watch what he does and copy it. Okay, so let's maybe pivot and focus on black. Excuse me. I've made a firm decision about what I'm going to play with white. It's this knight c3 line. So this is my main move. I'm going to put an exclamation point on it just because I want to. So this is really where our starting point will be for white. So when we look at black, it's good to have that in mind. All right, let's see. Pratt has something to say. Welcome, Pratt, to the chat. He says, usually in tournaments, people play obnoxious lines that don't make sense and just throw him off. That's funny. I feel like it's generally the opposite online. Like the opposite. Normally people online are doing some obnoxious stuff. But if people do weird stuff, it probably shouldn't throw you off, right? If you know your main lines, then you can figure out what to do about the weird stuff. For example, let's talk about one weird option. Knight takes f7. This is something that everyone who plays the Petrov has to be prepared for. Is this in your prep? What do you think? I know that you said you like to play Petrov sometimes with black in a previous stream. Obviously, king takes f7. Yeah. But the question is this in his prep? Now here, if you look at the database, it says that d4's been played, knight c3's been played. d4 is a higher win rate, and it's a bigger sample size. So usually, to me, that's a good indicator that you should keep this going. So process, you check this line. Is this what you would consider like a a weird, confusing side line, though. An obnoxious line. I think some people do. Oh, okay. Prot doesn't want to play chess when he plays the Petrov. I don't know. I would play it if people would play this against me. I think this would be nice to play against. Because you can see this position is like... It's kind of promising. Because for black, they have... Like, their king is weaker, but they have a lot of extra material. And I don't find white's improved development that... I don't know, exciting. It just doesn't look that important. But when you're looking at something like this, it's also good to ask not just like, what do I play against the top move in the database? You should say like, what's the human move here that makes sense to me, and is it good or bad, and why? And this is where it's good to check with the engine. For example, let's say that we check this really rare move. I like to order my variations in frequency, so even if I haven't checked it yet, I'm going to play knight c3 and just keep it in the notes like that. Hold on. I think I would rather have you guys be able to see my moves than this database. Okay, so there's some moves for you. Okay, so anyway, here we're in check, right? So here's an example of a weird move that, you know, if you're asking yourself, if I was playing white, what would I play here? And you might be like, oh, why don't I just check the king? It's good to check this out, see what you think your opponent would play, and then just, you know, kind of do a sanity check. Like, are these moves that I can find in a tournament? Are these moves that make sense to me? So here, the first move that comes to my mind is bishop e6. And before going down this line where there's just one game in the database, I would probably check with the engine. Let me get the engine in view for you guys. I could always read to you like what players have played. There's our engine that everyone loves so much. Alright, sorry for all the editing on stream. So sure enough, this shows an advantage for black, small advantage, which is interesting because we have a piece for 2 pawns right now. So just following the line a little bit and like playing my own moves and thinking about what they're going to do. If white plays a move like knight c3, something slow, then king d7 or d5, these both seem like really natural moves to me. D5 looks a little weird because you're opening the center when your king is there, but there's really nothing they can do to prevent you from leaving the center. For example, we do this. I was thinking we could take here, but then there's queen e2. Okay, so maybe it is actually an interesting line. The tactic here is this double attack. And it's good to keep in some of these lines like with notes on them so you can see like what the deal is. So d5 makes sense. This makes no sense. So here, king f7 with a big advantage for black, which is interesting. And it's good to go back and try to understand why this is the case. Here, this makes sense to me because this d pawn is going to be weak long term, and the king is safe. And by playing the move d6 to d5, we can free this bishop on f8. So we give 1 pawn so we can finish our development in the best possible way. Oh, and I thought it would be much worse for white. Yeah, I'm not just exploring this move because it's like ridiculous and a good place to just show like the concept. I think that this move is important to know. This knight f7 stuff. But still, it's good to know that you can play d5 here if they play knight c3. That's probably part of why they play d4 more often. But here we're already out of games. That doesn't mean your prep should end here. It's good to check things with an engine and play your own moves here. Obviously, like moves like this, they might be kind of trivial to you, right? Like this one, obviously queen g4 is winning. You don't want your king on like d5. It's going to be a disaster. So if those things are obvious to you, you don't have to put them in if you're making notes for your own opening, but it doesn't hurt either. So here, the main idea over and over again is to bring the king back to f7. And then, like, open the position for your pieces. Like, oftentimes it'll be d5, but here, if you play d5, they're going to play e5. And it's good to take note of the typical mistakes here. We want our knight to be safe and snug on f6 to defend our king for some time. So here, a really simple strategy would be like bishop e7. Maybe they'll try to break through with e5 anyway, and we castle artificially. Something like this. Looks fine. Granted, I don't trust this engine as far as I can throw it. It's a pretty weak engine on lichess. So if I had other tools, I would probably utilize those instead. But we're assuming that we don't have those tools for this stream. Anand's asking how I remember the moves that I explored. I mostly remember by just doing this part. Like, I play, like, kind of attentively with the engine and with the notes, and I feel like by just doing this with intention, it's like pretty easy to remember all of the moves for some time. And if you make suggestive comments, like with evaluation symbols and other symbols like the ones in my my recent video about all the chess symbols, you I think just by doing those things and thinking everything through, when you come back after some time having forgotten, because everyone forgets, you'll kind of remember this process of walking through the moves and trying to put a narrative on it. I think that's the best way. Like, don't go fast through this, just go slow and take your time and write good notes. That way you'll remember the first time and not have to drill. And when you've forgotten after some time, you can just come back and it'll be fresh. Like, imagine if we had basically the opening explorer, and that's like your opening notes. You know, in some sense, having a database of games is like having the ultimate opening notes database, right? You have all the openings there. The problem is it's too much information and none of it looks important. So it's good to arrange things in a way where the important things look important, like with the exclamation points and question marks. So anyway, where were we? So this is kind of like not a critical line here for black. I feel like bishop c4 is a mistake. Oh, but also here, I didn't check this with the engine, so it's good to see that d5 is actually a much better move. And later on, if you find improvements, you can always prune or keep things as like notes and just like make a comment here like this is not as good as the other option, but it's playable. Sometimes knowing that like the first 3 moves are all playable is useful. It gives you a good feeling for the position. So here, we're actually following someone's game. And this is similar to the idea of playing bishop e7, rook f8, and king g7 in that other line. But here it's probably even better. One nice thing about this position is the bishop is more active on d6. Another nice thing is that the pawn that was on e4 cannot advance to e5 after they take here. And the reason they're playing this is that if they play an obvious move like this, eventually they're going to have to defend the e-pawn. Like, they have to either take on d5 or passively defend it, and those are both not very good moves. You might think that there's some kind of fried liver attack style situation here, but this is not the case because we have this aggressive move here. If they could play like king d2, they'd probably be better because they'd have rook e1 stuff, but now their development is just disrupted, and this is much better for black. Okay. By the way, if you want to drill openings, you can download a lichess study as a PGN, which I also made a tutorial for on YouTube. And you can download that and then upload it to Chessable if you have a pro membership there. But that costs money. Okay, so maybe here we will cite a game. So in the lichess opening stuff, you can cite games at the bottom. Here, let me cover up my face for a second so you guys can see what I'm talking about. 'Cause you don't really need to see my face. All right, so here at the bottom, there's a game, right? This game. In lichess, you can click on the game and click cite, and it will add a link to the game in your text and the names of the players and what year it was played and where it was played. So that's a pretty useful feature. Do check it out. Just link this down. Okay. So it's good to cite these games. That also can reinforce your memory or give you something to look at later on. Anyway, bishop c4 was not a fantastic move. So the main moves are knight c3 and d4. So we'd probably want to check out d4. But that being said, I actually have already put out some content about this, I'm pretty sure. So I probably won't be dwelling on this too much. But the main move here is probably c5, and this is a good thing to remember. And I think it's important to rationalize the moves as you go. One nice thing about c5 is that it kind of steals the initiative from white a bit. For instance, if they keep playing normal moves, we can take, and if they play like queen takes, then they're already in deep trouble. Like we have knight c6. They could probably throw us a check, but eventually they're gonna have to just back off from all that. Like, the engine's suggesting an interesting move. I was thinking this move was also winning. Yeah, these have the same evaluation actually. Knight takes d5 and queen takes d5. But queen takes d5 is very, very snazzy, so I kind of like that. And this is clearly winning. Like, probably knight takes. And we're just a piece up. Oh, there's also a game here, so we could cite that. They did not find queen takes d5. They played knight takes d5, and everything was fine in the world after that. So queen takes d4 is probably not the critical test. Probably they would throw this check real quick. And again, I order my variations with most important on top, or like most likely to be seen. And again here, I'm either playing d5 or bishop e6, because those are the moves that I've seen in the other lines are perfectly good. Like maybe here d5, because we saw a couple times that was really nice. Here they have to take with the knight to avoid losing it. And here bishop e6 to finish our development. The reason is we don't want to play a move like this. This is an awful move. They'll probably take here with check, and my king will find no solace. Like maybe do one of these, because if I play g6, there's queen e5, so man on the run. I don't know if this is winning. Like when I look at the engine, I see that it's winning, but I don't really fully grasp the winningness of it all. I'd have to really look at this. But since I'm preparing this chapter for black, and I find it very unlikely that black will blunder like this against me when I have white, I think this is something where I don't want to explore any further. It's not like that interesting. I could figure it out as white if I had to. And as black, I don't want to go there. So bishop e6 makes more sense. And again, like comparing this with simply playing bishop e6, this is also fine. But in this position, our king's a little bit weak, and our bishop on f8 is not joining the game. So probably here, it's like, I don't know. Black is probably slightly better, but we could do better by playing with fire. And d5 is a good move over and over again, so this is a nice thing to just remember in general, that we want to play d5, even if it costs us a pawn. Because we're up a piece, right? We don't have to be so greedy. I think it's like Tarash or somebody said that if somebody gives you a piece, you should be kind and give it back. But only when you're winning. So knight c3 was just kind of to demonstrate what happens if white plays like c5 is, nothing. So based on the database and this line with knight c3, it makes sense that d takes c5 is the main line. And here I've got options. d5 has not lost for black here. This looks very promising. But it's interesting to see what happens if they play e5, because we have to reckon with this somehow. Normally, we don't want to move this knight away. Well, in the interest of time, I think that this is probably what I'll call good enough for now. Normally, I would come back and do this because making your openings is not something you do in like an hour, and I want to show you guys a few more lines. But having found this promising direction, I'm ready to go look at other things. You know, I could always come back to this. I'll put an exclamation point on it just so I remember that I want to come back here. Okay, so forget about this gambit for now. Yeah, forget about this gambit for now. This is an interesting gambit. Also, I think it's good to put the names of the openings in the comments, just to like reinforce things for you. Like, this is the Cochrane gambit. It sounds bad, and it is. Okay, but it's still interesting. Even pretty strong players will sometimes not know their theory there and get in trouble in like blitz. Okay, so here knight f3 is my main choice for white, but right now I'm in the black chapter. So we're preparing for what black wants to do. Maybe I'll flip the board. How do you do that? I do not know how to rotate the board. Oh, there's got to be a way here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, black chapter with black at the bottom, white chapter with white at the top. Okay. So, as black, we have to be prepared for all these moves. So, knight c4 is another one. Knight f3 we're going to look at for sure because that's my main move for white. Knight d3 is important. So, let's maybe look at knight c4. I like to kind of look at the more speculative moves first, because usually they're easy to get out of the way, and they might tell us something about why the main line is what it is. It's better than starting with the main line and guessing about the others. So it's not necessarily the case that the main line is right and all the other moves are wrong. So the most logical move here is knight takes e4, because we just gave a pawn. We should give it back. This is the only move that's been played here. Actually, I wonder if any lichess players have played other moves here. This is insane. I'm trying like every other move. These moves don't even make sense. I mean, like, barely. Okay, so knight takes e4 makes sense. I guess if you're preparing for people online, you would want to look at some of these other moves and see, like, what's good here. But this is the best move. I already know that, so I'll leave that alone. Okay, here, again, populating what white could do against us. Queen e2 is most common. Knight c3 is second most common. d4, d3, and knight e3 for some reason. Do we have other moves here? No, I think these are the only moves. Knight e3 is very uncommon, probably for a good reason. Some moves you don't really need to prepare against them. Knight e3 might be one of them, but first let's look at something forcing. If something's really forcing, I think we need to know the force line before we look at the alternatives. Alright, so let's see. Anand said that knight e4, queen e2, queen e7 occurred in the other line in the Carlsen-Caruana game. Yeah, I have a game here in this line. Maybe I should make it more visible for you guys. I don't know, I'm having a hard time with the visibility here. Yeah, there is a game here in the database that's Carlsen-Caruana from, let me see, from 2020. The year the music died. So, anyway, so queen e7 is a move here. And I believe that Anand blundered and lost horribly in a position like this. At some point. Hold on, let me see if I can remember. It was the fastest defeat of Anand's career, if I remember correctly. Oh no, it was in this line. I'll still show it because it's interesting. I think it was here. And the main move here is knight takes c3, and that's what I will be preparing as a main line here for black. But I think Anand here played bishop f5. It's not here in the lichess database. Instead, there's here a draw between Christensen and Miles, which I find even more insane than that Anand lost here. But if you want, you could, if you're watching the replay, pause the video, and if you're here live, well, actually, I have the engine running, so you guys already can see. Never mind, I should turn that off. Queen e2 is the winning move. Yeah. Oh, okay. Apparently, Feingold has reported on this. Yeah, and this position, black is lost. Like here. There's like queen b5 check stuff. I think he might have been hoping for something like, I don't know, like this, probably. I don't know. But he didn't get that. Instead, he got knight d5. And this was really bad. I think that, yeah, he probably only saw knight e4 and queen b5. I'm just not sure why he would blunder like that. The knight d5 thing did not happen in the Christensen game, though. Let me see. Here it's Miles versus Christensen. Actually, here I'll put a comment that this was an Anand game. Put this as the main line. So this was Anand. I don't remember who it was or what year it was. I can figure that out later. But it's good to know that Anand lost here. So the place where they went differently here was knight takes e4. I think it's good to sometimes take note of where really strong players falter. Like here, this is a perfectly fine position now. Because if you play like queen e2 here, there's queen e7, and the game they played d3, and then this is like a normal position. I wonder if this was blitz or something. So let me view this game real quick. Imported by lichess. Where's the game data? I don't know. I thought there'd be more information here than there is. So, going away from that. Kind of an interesting tidbit, but not what we were looking at. I was sort of psychobabbling there. So here's knight c4, knight e4, normal stuff. And queen e2. So this is just what reminded me that there was a position where the knight was hanging, like with the insertion of knight c3 and bishop f5. It's kind of the same. So like, I'm just making a quick note here for black about what to avoid. Here we should take on c3, in my opinion. And it looks like the top move is b takes, which I did not expect. I thought d takes would be tops. But here, just as a note, it's like, do not play this move. Because it's the same kind of deal. Like, we do this. Maybe here it's not so bad, because d5 at least hits the knight on c4. But there's still probably queen b5 stuff. But, you know, this is kind of where we're going with this whole thing, that there's knight d5. It's a repeating motif. Don't fall for that. Okay, so there's that one. So not queen e7. I just want to check and see the differences here, because this is also good for like understanding your opening. So d3, I could get a good position just by like playing d3, pawn takes c4, pawn takes e4. That's a lot of development for white. But there's probably also something else here. Knight a5 maybe? I like to try to solve some things while I'm studying the openings too. Here it says d3 with a good position. It's the engine's opinion. But it also says knight takes d5. Knight takes d5 does come to mind. If they can't take it, I want to play knight takes d5. So let's actually take a look at that first, even though it's not the top engine move. If they take this, what's the problem? Oh, okay, I see. So we're going to trade the knight. Like, let's say they go, I don't know. Let's say they go to d7, right? And take, and then play d3. Oh, here's queen takes f2. And they can get some compensation, so it should be like this. Interesting. Okay, and this is winning for white. So this is a nice little combination too. So it looks like the motifs with the knight on c4 are actually pretty similar to with the knight on f3. d3 is also simple. I think that's kind of what Anand's getting at here. That if you played like d5 here, d3, it's all good. You know, they take, have to save this pawn, I guess. But then after probably long castling in a couple of moves, like we go here, castle long. This position is much better for white. The engine's even more optimistic, says like white's winning, but I'm just gonna say white's better. Because our advantage is not that tangible yet. It's like there's a weak pawn on c4 that'll eventually drop off. Might need to be precise to get more than just like one pawn's worth out of that kind of attack. So d3 is good. There's a little foray just by comparing it with the game where Anand had some ill fortune, and probably in Blitz, I don't remember. Okay, so knight c3 is at any rate a logical move. So we should probably take this to avoid those pinning problems if we're playing black. How'd the board get flipped around again? Hold on. I thought I flipped the board. Did I flip the wrong board? No, this is the chapter for black. Here, I'm flipping it again. Interesting. I guess if I just navigate away, it's going to reflip back to white. It's funny. Okay, so the main move I thought was d takes. So let's take a look at that. See if there's some issues here that could help us to play black. So the engine is showing bishop e6, bishop knight e3, and then d5. And bishop e7 and d5 are both top moves here. So my first question is probably what's the difference in the move order? If they play bishop e6 and the engine wants them to play knight e3, there must be something wrong with the knight staying. So let's actually explore that. We go here. Let's say that they play something like bishop f4. You know, well, I don't know. Bishop f4, I'm not sure it's the most logical move. Let's say they want to castle. You know, they just... oh, but which way do they want to castle? Probably they want to castle long. So let's say they play bishop e3. Let's just pretend. Is there really something wrong with the knight being on c4? Right now, I don't see much like downside to the knight being on c4. So if the computer wants to play knight e3 so badly, like probably something like this. I guess it could get awkward if they can play the move d5. I don't think it's impossible, but it's at least a little bit awkward. Like, let's say we play this move. And they play this move. And we go, like, I don't know, long castling. Something like this. Oh, actually, d5 wasn't the issue. It's b5. This makes sense. So I think that this is probably an important thing to note. So I'm going to say it's good to avoid d5 or b5 coming with tempo in advance. Now it sounds like I'm making notes for white in a file that's black to play, but it's important to understand what your opponent's going for. It's not like our moves matter and their moves don't matter. So this line sort of illustrates why maybe we want to play knight e3 immediately. Granted, there are also no lines, no games here. All the games are with bishop e7 and d5. So either that means that there's something better or equivalent about bishop e7 and d5, or that there's something something wrong with bishop e6 that we're not seeing, or that there's nothing wrong, no one's done it, and it's a novelty and we're awesome. I like to think that it's a novelty and we're awesome. Anand says that it seems that black has enough pieces to defend an attack, probably in the other line that we were looking at. Yeah, it's not like they're down a piece or anything. So let's see bishop e7. Just call it the main line for now. People have played bishop d3 and bishop f4. So let's look at bishop d3, because that's probably like the easiest move to guess. Knight d7's a natural move, just bringing it to a better square. We don't know where it is yet. c5, e5, f6, f8, b8, b6. We got options. I think in this structure, usually the most testing thing is to castle long. So even though the engine and the top move, it's like, let's castle, I don't really care. Let's see about this one. What's up, Uter Master? Okay, so the only move played here is knight f6 in this database, and it's an old game. It's good to keep note of if things are current or not. I think castling's the most logical move, so I'm going to just go with that. Now let's say they play like queen d2. Again, we're just trying to get that queenside play going, or kingside play. Castling long and playing h4 as white. Just playing moves that make sense to me right now. This says that black is slightly better here. I guess I could believe it. At some point, if we need to, we can take off this bishop to defend our king. And we have a5 coming in at least as fast as white is playing h4. Like we have a4, a3 type stuff. They have h5, h6 type stuff. Yeah, Uter Master, my laptop is half jet engine, especially when I use the chess engines. It's taking off. It's a good laptop though. I think it's just loud because it has a good processor and a cooling system built in. Okay, so I'm not sure I'm like convinced of why white is mostly playing b takes c3 in this position, but I see that we can at least get a playable position after some natural moves from white. Like the natural variation that I picked here for white is like this, and this position is totally playable for me as black. So I feel kind of okay with this for now. So going back and looking at b takes, the main move by frequency. Here, let's just, you know, threaten a castle, stay flexible. Here, the only move played is d4, and some people who've played it are like Nakamura playing against Aronian, Petrosian, also known as PP in Your Pampers, playing against Hammer. We have a couple good players here. Oh, even Magesh has played this with black. Interesting. Yeah, Magesh is a friend, so I kind of want to check Magesh's game. Let me see. Maybe it'll come down the line. Yeah, Magesh castled here. And then did something different. Hold on, I want to see what Magesh did here. This was back in like 2002. I think this is when Magesh was making his norms. GM norms. Bishop d3 and then d5. Let's see. Okay, we can follow it this way. So in their game, they played like this. I'm mostly just seeing this because I know Magesh and I'm interested in how he played. Okay, Anand has a question. Can black play d5 instead of castling? Let's go back. I don't know why you would want to play d5 now instead of castling, because it's not like you're losing the chance to play d5, right? Like, if you castle and they play d5 to prevent you, I think this is only a loss of time. c3 is weak. And now you have to passively defend it. In fact, rook e8's coming with tempo. This all looks pretty good. Like, here comes rook e8. Maybe knight e3 now, because we keep seeing knight e3 is important. This looks like a much better version of positions we were just looking at. I don't think the pawn on d5 is that good. Okay, so d5 is not really helping. And in that sense, I don't see why we should hurry up and play d5 ourselves. Like, let's say you play d5 now. I'm wondering if there's like a merit in playing knight e5. I think your knight will become unstable. Like, let's say you castle. Now there's c5. Obviously taking is bad. c4 is also unfortunate. Like here, if they threaten mate, we play g6. So they're probably trying to sack for a draw. Okay, I guess if you want to force draw, you can play this, because white can already force a draw. This is good to know. Probably take with the h pawn. We have to take everything, and this is a draw. I don't have any games here where this actually occurred, but I can see it happening. It's good to take note of this forced draw. It's good to make a note there so I can remember that for the future. Anand, I hope that's the position where you were looking at d5 instead of castling. Anyway, if I really want to play d5, I can do it later on. Right now, if I play d5, it's transposing to the same. So, playing d5 first probably doesn't have any independent value, as far as I can tell. And once I see that forced draw from white, I don't think I really want to play this. Like, if I was playing against a stronger player, I know they would play knight e3 and avoid it. and I don't have any control over whether or not we draw against the lower player, so probably I don't want to do that. Now, Yeatermaster was saying that B takes is very, like, either unintuitive, I don't remember what word he said. Like, unnatural, probably. Like, D takes is more natural. The natural thing about B takes is that you can have this situation with more space with D4 and bishop D3. So it's actually pretty natural, but I don't think it's that testing in my experience. Like, eventually black will get D5 in after consolidating their position. So it might be something like this. Hold on. Even here, let's look at Magesh's game. All right, so Magesh Panchanathan was playing black here in 2002, and his opponent played knight e3, and he played c6. And this position apparently has been played several times. It's a transposition. And there's castling. And what did Magesh play? Probably rook e8. Yeah. Hold on. I wish I could see like what move that person in particular played without inserting the entire game. Queen f3 is what the engine thinks is interesting, so it'd probably be good to come back here. Of course, in Magesh's game, his opponent, Dipsai, played a4. A bit of a different way to play this position. But I don't think black is really like in trouble here once they've gotten d5 against this structure, because now they can bring their knight to e4, and it'll probably take some work to deal with that. Like here in the game, they played knight f5. Bishop f8 is pretty natural, but Magesh played knight f6. I'm mostly playing this out just because I'm interested in how he played. It's not really how I would recommend to do the opening stuff. Yeah, so we went down this path, apparently. And they played bishop g5. Oh, he played queen d6 directly. I'm going off on a little tangent here. I'll probably abort this mission because we're like deep in the middle game at this point. I'll probably check it out on my own time. So, just because I'm interested here, I'm gonna chop these moves and cite the game, so I can come back to it. Okay. But d5 is an interesting move. It might be worth looking at for black, just because this move has not been played very much. Like here, top move is knight d7. I mean, there's not a lot of games here, so it's already unlikely that you'll reach this position. But if you do, d5 is apparently perfectly fine. One thing to check, though, I guess, is that knight e5 is not forcing a draw. Yeah, here it's actually the same position. So I guess in that game that Magesh played, he was willing to accept white forcing a draw. So maybe d5 is not that critical. So I'm going to put this as like interesting. But maybe it's only really useful against someone whose rating is like right by you, and you know that they want to fight for a win. I don't know. This could explain maybe why the move order starts with knight d7, typically. Like here they'll castle. And here if we play d5, we can play knight takes e5. So this is a good way to avoid a draw. I think so, anyway. So I'll mark that it's preventing knight e5. Trying to keep the position a little bit more alive. So by comparing those lines, we can see why it's knight d7 and not some other move. This is probably good enough for me for now, so I'll switch again and take a look at another line. Obviously, I would do like a more broad and deep analysis here, but I want to try to keep this under 10 years long, this video. Okay, so here we only really looked at this. This is probably like the main thing for this knight c4 move, so we can abandon that and take a look at something else. Knight d3 is a very modern move. It's hardly been played, so I think it's probably good to check this out. Knight takes e4 is obviously the right move, and here we have like all the same options. It's like just in general, white is doing the same stuff, and black is probably also just doing the same stuff all the time. There's a game with knight f4 here, played by Fedoseev against Sarin. So this also probably deserves some attention. But let's look at this obvious move. I think it's good to get acquainted with the obvious options before going for the main moves or the critical moves. So knight f4 is being played anyway. This is probably part of why Fedoseev played this against Sarin on the previous move. Actually, let's compare those two real quick. So knight f4 was played first, and Nihal played knight f6. Well, let me see what's the main response here. Knight c6. Okay, so people are usually playing queen e7 and knight c6. Actually, let's see the fate of the knight on e4 in at least one line. Like here, there's knight d5. Oh, things are getting really sharp. Knight d4. I've actually seen this position now that I think of it. Okay, so this knight on e4 is just not going anywhere. This is all along forced lines, so I'm just going to put this all in here real quick. Okay, it looks like c3 is the first breaking point. I think knight b5 is like a continuation of the forced line. Anyway, I'll come back to that in a second. I want to compare with this knight f4 move. He only played knight f6. But I want to see... Alright, I'll cite this game real quick. But I do want to see if knight c6 transposes. So let's say I play queen e2. If I play queen e7, it should be like the same. Yeah, this transposes to knight d4 and everything. But here, I think there's this extra option. Like, if they play d3, for example, knight d4 is probably better. Because we got all this development, and the development looks fine. Like here, we go like this. And if they play d4, we get knight e4, so that all looks kind of peachy and nice. I don't think it's a nightmare position, Anand. I think all this complication is perfectly fine. I like it. So d3 is no bueno, but they have knight takes. And here the engine says bishop f5. This has never been played. So we're just threatening to take this knight. And we're also threatening knight d4. So this move, queen c4, is probably the only move, or queen d3. Queen d3 is probably knight b5, something like that. No, there's knight on e4 somewhere. So here we just have a lot of piece activity. This looks pretty good. And just to illustrate why queen c4 is the only move, let's look at something kind of normal. Something that guards this knight. Like, let's say they go here, right? This is just for sake of argument. This is allowing knight d4. Queen d1 is probably playable, but queen d3 is the main move. If they go here, and we do this, and they do this. Oh, there's knight c2, winning the queen because of king e2 mate stuff. Okay, so this is a nice tactic to remember. So maybe put an exclamation point on this, put a question mark on this. So queen d3, important. And it's almost like the same tactic is happening, but then they have this move in the middle. And black is much better. Okay, so this is a good tactic. Yes, the Roberts variation that no one has ever played. Okay, so here it looks like there's some interesting potential for black against this move order with knight f4. So I'm going to just call this a dubious move. Let me see. Where were we? Right, so we were looking at knight d3. And knight f4 was our main thing. Queen e2 and then knight f4. So this way there's no d5 stuff as far as I can tell, because we haven't thrown knight c6 in. And now knight d5 comes with tempo, and then we go to this long force line. And here there's a Carlsen versus Caruana game, and I kind of want to follow Caruana and what he plays. So I'll just cite that game. So whatever the evaluation is for this long force line that ends like this is really important, because it looks like it arises almost like by force from the opening. Like knight d3, knight d4, it's just like a long line. I don't think there's really a lot of meaningful branching points here. Like, gotta play this. Oh, they could play different moves here. Like knight c3, we could see again. Probably here we should just, I don't know, maybe we could take this too. And say your pawn structure is bad. I'd have to check out this variation. I wonder if I know this player too. Idnani. Oh, it's Idani. No, I don't know them. Okay. Okay, so maybe check another line. Let's look at the main line here. So knight f3 is the main move. Yeah, Caruana plays this variation a lot for a top player. I think that probably you could, like, if I was doing this with ChessBase, I'd be searching just Caruana's name and then taking all of his games in this line, putting them in a database, and then checking it out from there. But we're using lichess. I want to show people how to do everything they could ever want with just the free tools. But yeah, it would be easier if I could just search Caruana. Okay, so d4 is also a main move here. That's the main move that I'm going to consider, because that's my main prep. Queen e2 is a move here. c4 is apparently a move here. It's a little bit weird to me. d3, obviously we play this. This will probably transpose. Oh yeah, I've seen this line. So this becomes a transposition. There's this weird bishop d3 move. Okay, and probably things beyond this are not really super useful. Bishop e2, bishop b5, they're probably like quick lines to look at. Bishop c4, also probably not much to look at. c3. Why would anyone even play c3? Trying to avoid some prep, I guess. Okay, so probably I'm going to wrap up for now because I have to do other things. This takes a long time, but maybe I'll continue this in another live stream sometime soon. Okay, so we can call this part 1 of the Petrov defense using just our free resources. Alright, so I'm going to sign off here, and I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw, and that we can get together again on a live stream sometime soon to keep working on this or maybe some other stuff. And until then, take care, everyone. Thanks for showing up.